guys, so Anita and I'm back with another video. Today I want to share with you my favorite books of the year 2020. I am a little bit late with this, as I can see from other people's content, but I wanted to have my December wrap up before I was able to film this. So in case there were books from that list that was going to make it, I read 25 5-star books and 25 4.5-star books over the past year. So I have a lot of great books that I read in 2020, and I was really happy about that. And I thought about how I wanted to define my favorites of the year. So I tried figuring out what books to add to my best books of the year. It was really difficult narrowing everything down, because when you read so many books that you think, I think it's because when you read a certain number of books per year, and hopefully the majority of what you read you're going to be enjoying, it's going to be difficult to narrow it down to a smaller list. But I managed to narrow it down to 12 books that have made a quite big impact on me over the past year, and I know that I won't forget them, so therefore they will be my top reads of the year. And I'm just going to talk to you about them from the lowest to the number one spot. But I'd like to mention that it was actually difficult sorting these into a list, because a lot of them are just considered evenly good. So anyway, let's get into my top 12 books of the books that I read in 2020. Coming in as number 12 on my list of books of the year is going to be a December read, so I'm happy I was able to wait and film it until now. That was Foxe and the Hound by R.S. Gray. It surprised me in so many ways. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. It was exactly what I was needed at the time, and it definitely made me convinced that I need to read way more books by this author in the future. It's a sort of contemporary romance that I personally enjoy, so it just was really fitting with my personal what I prefer when it comes to contemporary romances. I think that what it shined with was that it had a lot of great it had a good friendship, but the relationship elements were great as well. I do like it when it's sort of a haters to lovers plot, but it has to be sort of convincing that the relationship part sort of happens gradually. And yeah, there were just a lot of things that I thought were really great with this book, and so it ended on my top list because I really enjoyed it. Coming in as number 11 is another December read for me, and that was Night Watch by Pratchett. This is the 29th book in the Discworld, but it's also like, I think book 6 or something in the City Watch. I have lost count of how many there was. The City Watch books are generally one of my preferred sub-series in this. I mean, I have the Death series, the Witches series, and the City Watch series being my favorite series, sub-series in this. This one just met all of my expectations. It follows Sam Vimes, who is a police detective, or whatever you call it, in Ankh-Morpork in the Discworld. And he, in this one, goes back in time and has to sort of relive his past in a way, and it was just very interesting. There was talks about the police system and all of that were really relevant to today's problems, and he definitely acknowledged those themes in this book, I think. And I think it just handled a lot of topics really well. Plus, it's just Pratchett is just always funny. He has a lot of humor in his books, and obviously this one was the same, and I always enjoy reading about them. So yeah, it was a 5-star read for me, and it was a really solid Pratchett book. Coming in as number 10 is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is my first delve into Diana Wynne Jones's books, and it's a middle grade book, and it follows this young adult, I'm not sure. I think it's shelved middle grade mostly, but I actually think the characters are young adult, so I don't know. It follows this girl who works in her mother's hat shop. She accidentally pissed off a customer, which ended up with her being given a curse, and she grew old really fast, and so she fled and ran to Howl's Moving Castle to solve the problem. And she ended up taking up a cleaning as a cleaning lady there, and things go from there. It was such a fun ride. I really enjoyed this book overall. I can't wait to read on in the series and read more of Diana Wynne Jones's books in the future, because they had such a whimsy quality to it that I really have come to enjoy, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it all yet already. I think it lives up to the expectations that I had for myself, so I was really happy about that. Next up on my list is The Relentless Moon by Mary Robinette Kowall. This is the third book in the Lady Astronaut series, and the Lady Astronaut series follows lady astronauts in the 50s in a time, like, it's sort of exploring an alternate universe where a meteorite struck the Atlantic Ocean and obliterated all of the majority of the east coast of the US, including Washington DC, and the sort of chain events that follows this, with climate changes and things that happen. So this one is following a different perspective than the other two books has been doing, and it was really interesting seeing it from a different perspective. It was also set sort of in a same timeline as sort of the second book was, so it was also interesting sort of following the things that were happening on the separate spaceship. Then this one is mostly set at the moon, which also I think this title gives away, and following Nicole, who has to solve a mystery because someone has tried to sabotage everything that they've been working on, and they're stuck on the moon and they can't get back until they figure out a solution and who is behind all of this. They don't have any connection with Earth, and it's quite a scary process, and I think Mary Robinette Kowall manages just to add so much tension and add so much to her characters that it just becomes a really interesting read. And I have enjoyed every book that I've read by Mary Robinette Kowall so far, so I'm really looking forward to reading on, both with this series but also with other books that she has written. So I highly recommend this series as a whole, and this is my second favorite of the series. And the next up is a classic fantasy book, and that is the Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I really enjoyed reading this. I read The Hobbit last year, and it was also one of my favorites, and I got into J.R.R. Tolkien's writing style. I think there's a reason why this is so popular. I don't think you can just jump into this necessarily and expect it to enjoy it. I think it's for a very specific audience. He's extremely descriptive about everything, so he takes his time to talk about the surroundings of you, but it makes it really rich, and if you enjoy those type of books, you just have a vision of how everything is looking, and you don't mind that it takes a little bit of time before anything goes anywhere. And then there's all of the characters that you have come to maybe enjoy from the movies. That was what happened in my case. I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and I've watched them multiple times. I haven't watched them recently, but I might do it soon. But yeah, there's a lot of things in this one. I think the movie follows this book pretty well. The characters seem real, and the strange thing was that I was listening to this in audio form, and the narrator wasn't, like, the voices wasn't what I was used to from the movies, obviously, which it couldn't be, but I just really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read on in the series and finish it. And I'm definitely become quite a fan of J.R.R. Tolkien's work so far, and understand why he has been such a popular author for such a long time. Next up is a newly discovered author this year, but I've wanted to read him since forever, and I had a good feeling about his writing style. But he is a modern classic author, and that is Bradbury. I read Dandelion Vine. This is a book about following these kids in this town, in this small town called Greentown. It's set in, I don't know, the 50s, 60s, the summer of 28, so further back. And it's just following these boys as they sort of goes through the summer vacation, and this is the year where they first discover that someday they are going to die. It's inevitable, and the sort of thought processes and everything that entails. And yeah, it was sort of whimsical. It has sort of magical realism type feeling to it, and I just really enjoyed the discussions. But I think that this writing style is definitely so special or different, then I think it's a specific type of audience that like this. But if you think it sounds interesting, then definitely I think it's worth trying it out. I haven't read any Bradbury before because it was not part of any curriculum for me as a Dane. So a lot of these authors who were part of required reading for other people hasn't been for me, so I have a different, I think, approach to these because it's not been forced down on me, and I'm really happy I read this one. Coming in as number 6 on my list is Love from A to Z by J.R.R. This is a contemporary YA contemporary romance. It follows these two perspectives. It follows a half Chinese, half I've forgotten, he was half Chinese and half something else, but he had been converted into Muslim. His family had converted into Muslim for some years back, and then we follow a girl who is Muslim as well, and she's an activist against anti-Islamistic behavior. So yeah, she has been sort of abandoned from her school because she spoke up about a situation, and her parents has now sent her off to Qatar. And our main male character is sort of suffering from some sort of sclerosis, type, but it was sort of a type of sclerosis disease that he had, he's lost his own mother to the same disease. So he had just recently found out about this and was trying to tackling that. But this illness itself wasn't sort of taking over the plot. It was just there. It was discussed in an interesting way. But he was also finding friends, and he was befriending our other main character, and it was just a really good time. I really enjoyed this book as a whole, and I swallowed this book up in a couple of hours, in just a little over a day when I was listening to the audio, and I highly recommend it. I think J.R.R. added so many interesting topics to this and just wove the plot together in a way that I really enjoy. I tend to not read very many YA contemporaries because I don't think the themes that they talk about are as relevant to me, or as not relevant, but something that really grabs my attention. But this one is an exception to that, and I really appreciate it, and I was really happy that I read it, and I'm so going to be reading more from J.R.R. in the future. I'm definitely going to read Saints and Misfits and see if she doesn't have anything new coming out in the next year. I would be very much looking forward to that. Coming in as number 5 on my list is Carpe's Jugulum. This is another Pratchett books. This is a witch's book. I've forgotten what number in the series it is. It follows our witches, and it follows a vampire story. It is just a whole lot of fun. So it sort of ends up in a war between the vampires and the witches, and it's a whole lot of fun. The witches, like Esme, Weatherwax, and Nanny Ogg, and Margaret, and everyone. I just adore all of these witches, and they, especially Esme Weatherwax, has had the best sort of character development over the series, and I adore them. Adore her a lot. And the vampire elements to this was very funny as well, and the whole discussion. And then the newer witch Agnes is an amazing addition to the witches series. Margaret, who's just recently become a mother and trying to sort of balance in mother life and and being a witch as well, and it's not easy. But this was amazing. 5 stars, my favorite J.R.R. Pratchett book of the year. I know there's 2 J.R.R. Pratchett books here, but sometimes it's really difficult narrowing it down, and I knew both books had to be on my list, so I'm not sorry. I think you should all read J.R.R. Pratchett. Coming in as number 4 is a surprising read for me, and that is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I think that was his name. I just really forgot that. This is a one of the strangest books I've ever read. And with a strange book, it can go both ways. You can either hate it or you can really enjoy it. It depends a lot on who you are and what type of book it is. And for me, I mean, it could have fallen flat, but it didn't. I was extremely confused about everything that was going on for the entirety of the book almost. But I was so intrigued about everything that was going to be happening, the characters and everything, and it was just such a fun ride. I think that our main character Caroline is an unlikable character. She definitely doesn't do very much for anyone else's purposes, but she's super interesting at the same time. And I think this explores horror, fantasy, science fiction. Like, I feel like it has like all of these different genres crammed into one, and I had the most fun with this. I don't know who I can recommend it to, and I don't want to talk too much about the plot, because I think a part of the charm of this book is not knowing anything about it and just going on for the ride and see where you land by the end. And yeah, so I think that's how everyone should try it out, but just know that if you don't like books that has unlikable characters, then it might not be for you. Otherwise, I think you should give it a go and see if it's something that you like, and I think you'll find out pretty early on if you jive with the writing style, if you jive with the content, everything. Because I think for me it was like I was reading like the first couple of chapters and I was extremely hooked, because I was so confused and I just wanted to know what was going on. So it was a lot of fun. Coming in as number 3 on my list of the year is Sal and Gabi Fix the Universe by Hernandez. This just surprised me in so many ways. I don't think when I picked this up, I definitely did not expect the content that it's had. Sal and Gabi breaks the universe, follows Sal, who has recently moved into a new town, and it's like his first day and he's already been to the principal's office, or like first week of school, and he's already been to the principal's office like multiple times. Sal is able to do magic, and yeah, I think what this book does so well is that it talks about all of these different themes. It covers grief, bullying, loss of a parent, grief part, trying to find yourself, friendship, family ties, like everything. It has so many things, multiple fathers, and a magic system that is so interesting, parallel universes, and it has everything, and it's just talked about in such a way that I just love this one. It hurt me and it warmed me and it made me feeling everything, and I think because of that it definitely had to get a really high spot on my list. While I didn't love the second book as much, it just because that the first one was such an amazing book to me, I would read anything that he publishes just because it handles so many different themes. He does that in the second book as well, but I think what that lacked was a little bit more of a plot. I think this one had the better plot, and that's why it lacked a little bit, but I loved everything about this one. Coming in as the number 2 on my list is Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow. I mean, middle grade has just become one of my favorite go-to genres, or go-to age ranges for fantasy. I think middle grade does something that the young adult and adult fantasy doesn't, and it's something that I look for and I really enjoy when I read it. Hollowpox, or the Nevermore series, I think has some really excellent characters. It has an excellent atmosphere, and one of my favorite things about the series, this book in particular, is just how the author completely surprises me every time she writes another addition to the series. I think there's the themes that were explored in this, and the ending of this, and how she describes I think it was also unsettling in some ways, in many ways, because they were finding or trying to figure out a new disease that had happened in the world. And so it was hitting home very much with everything that we're going through in 2020 and 2021 with the coronavirus, and how, so all of the steps from how we've been doing over the past year has been happened in this one, like the discovering of a new disease, lockdown, people trying to fight against everything, not believing in anything that the majority, like the media says, because they think it's not real and they don't believe in it, and it just became really real in that way as well. So it just had a lot of things working for it, and I loved it. And Morrigan is great, and Jupiter, like, there's so many great characters in here. Finestra, I love them all, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this will go and take us in the future books. So I'm really looking forward to the next one. My favorite book of the year is, I don't think, a surprise if you've been on my channel, but my favorite book of the year is Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I think she manages to, like, her writing style is excellent. This specific book just has a sort of fairy tale like writing to it, and it just sucked me in, and I was really into the whole story. The talk about Mayan mythology was excellent. The characters, the themes, like, I loved everything about this book, and it's one that stuck with me throughout the year since I read it, and I kept thinking about this book, and I kept thinking about the writing, and Silvia Moreno Garcia has become one of my go-to authors now. I also read Mexican Gothic by her, but it didn't make this list, but I still loved it a lot. And I cannot wait to discover more books by the author in the coming year. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite of the year. I think I read a lot of great books, but I also think that I definitely have to make an effort next year to read even more by personal people of color, and especially from Black authors, because none of them, the books that I read from Black authors, made the list, even though I think they were just under. So I really want to make an effort to try and read more of those books in the next year, and hopefully that will succeed in adding some Black authors to my end of the year list, because I think there's definitely going to be a lot of books like that for me out there. Yeah, this is my list. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite book was of the year, and if you read any of the books that I've been talking about today, and if you enjoyed them as well. Also let me know about that, and yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Goodbye.